Chapter name: Breathing and exchange of gases. Oxygen is utilized by the organism to indirectly break down of nutrient molecule like glucose and to derive energy for performing various activities. Carbon dioxide, which is harmful, is also released during the above catabolic reactions. It is therefore evident that oxygen has to be continuously provided to the cells, and carbon dioxide produced by the cells have to be released out. This process of exchange of O2 from the atmosphere with CO2 produced by the cells is called breathing, commonly known as respiration. Respiration is for energy liberation. Respiration involves the following steps: breathing or pulmonary ventilation, by which atmospheric air is drawn in and CO2-rich alveolar air is released out. Diffusion of gases O2 and CO2 across alveolar membrane. Transport of gases by blood. Diffusion of O2 and CO2 between blood and tissue. Utilization of O2 by the cells for catabolic reactions and resultant release of CO2. Respiratory organ. Mechanism of breathing vary among different groups of animal, depending mainly on their habitats and level of organization. Lower invertebrates like sponge, coelentrates, hydra, flatworms, tapeworm, etc. exchange O2 with CO2 by simple diffusion over their entire body surface. Earthworm use their moist cuticle, and insects have a network of tracheal tube to transport atmospheric air within the body. A special vascularized structure called gills are used by most of the aquatic arthropods and mollusks. Vascularized bag called lungs are used by the terrestrial forms for the exchange of gases. Among vertebrates, fishes use gills, whereas reptiles, birds, and mammals respire through lungs. Amphibians like frogs can respire through their moist skin, also mainly during hibernation and aviation. Mammals have a well-developed respiratory system. What is the site of gaseous exchange in an insect? In insect, gaseous exchange occurs through a network of tubes, collectively known as the tracheal system. Thus, small openings on the side of an insect's body are known as spiracles. Oxygen-rich air enters through the spiracles. The spiracles are connected to the network of tubes. From the spiracles, oxygen enters the trachea. From here, oxygen diffuses into the cells of the body. The movement of carbon dioxide follows the reverse path. The CO2 from the cells of the body first enters the trachea and then leaves the body through the spiracles. Respiration through gills is called respiration. Respiration through skin is called cutaneous respiration. Respiration through lung is called pulmonary respiration. Respiration through trachea is called tracheal respiration. Respiration through buccopharyngeal cavity is called buccopharyngeal respiration. Name of the organism: respiratory organ. Name of the organism: respiratory organ. Protozoa: Porifera, Coelentrata, Ctenophora, Platyhelminthes, Eschyhelminthes. Respiratory organs are absent, but respiration takes place by general body surface. Annelida, earthworm, insect, cockroach, silkworm, Arachnidia, spider, most critical trachea, book lungs. Mollusca, gills, echinodermata, body surface called dermal branchiae in most genital bursae in brittle star and tube feet in all. Fishes, gills, tadpole gill, frog lung, skin, buccopharyngeal cavity. Reptiles, lungs, birds, lungs, mammals, lungs. Human respiratory system. Endo-mesodermal in origin. Nose and nasal chamber. We have a pair of external nostrils opening out above the upper lips. Since there are two external nostrils in human beings, thus this condition is called diurnus condition. It leads to a nasal chamber through the nasal passage. Both the nasal chambers are separated from each other by hyaline cartilage. The anterior part of each nasal chamber is called nasal vestibule. Nasal vestibule is formed by invagination of skin during embryonic development, so this part contains hair and sebaceous glands. In this manner, dust particles cannot enter in. The posterior part of the nasal chamber is occupied by three bones or conchi at several places in the nasal passage. These bones form outgrowth called turbinals. Due to these outgrowths, the nasal passage is long and spiral. This helps in making the temperature of air equal to the body temperature before it reaches the lungs and does not allow the unwanted materials like dust to reach the lungs. Some part of this outgrowth consists of olfactory epithelium. The nasal chamber opens into nasopharynx through internal nostrils concha. Nasopharynx is a portion of pharynx, the common passage for food and air. Nasopharynx opens into oropharynx, which opens through glottis of the larynx region into the trachea. Larynx is a cartilaginous box which helps in sound production and hence called the sound box. During swallowing, glottis can be covered by thin elastic cartilaginous flap called epiglottis to prevent the entry of food into the larynx. Trachea. Trachea is a straight tube, diameter 2.5 cm, length 12 cm, extending up to the mid-thoracic cavity, which divides at the level of fifth thoracic vertebra into a right and left primary bronchi. Each bronchi undergoes repeated divisions to form the secondary and tertiary bronchi and bronchioles, ending up in very thin terminal bronchioles. The trachea, primary, secondary, and tertiary bronchi. The initial bronchioles are supported by incomplete cartilaginous rings on the dorsal side of rings. Tracheal muscles are present. These are involuntary muscles and are harmful in forcible breathing and to dilate the trachea. Each terminal bronchiole gives rise to a number of very thin, irregular walled and vascularized bag-like structure called alveoli. The branching network of bronchioles and alveoli comprise the lungs, bronchial tree, and respiratory tree. There are two zones. The part starting with the external nostrils up to the terminal bronchioles consists the conducting part, where the alveoli and their duct from the respiratory or exchange part of the respiratory system. The conducting part transport the atmospheric air to the alveoli, clear it for foreign particles, humidifies, and also brings the air up to body temperature. Presence of shaped cartilaginous rings from trachea to initial bronchioles. Lungs are endodermal in origin. We have two lungs. Right lungs is three-lobed, whereas left lungs is two-lobed, which are covered by a double-layered pleura with pleura fluid between them. It reduces friction on the lung surface and acts as a shock absorber. The outer pleural membrane is in close contact with the thoracic lining, where the inner pleural membrane in contact with the lung surface. Pulmonary vessels, bronchus, and nerves enter or leave the lung at the hilus. Increase in the amount of pleural fluid is called pleurisy. Problem in breathing due to pleurisy is called dyspnea. The lungs are suitable in the thoracic chamber, which is automatically an air-tight chamber. The thoracic chamber is formed dorsally by the vertebral column, ventrally by the sternum, laterally by the ribs, and on the lower side of the dome-shaped diaphragm. Epiglottis, larynx, trachea, bronchus, cut end of rib, lungs, pleural membrane, alveoli, pleural fluid, bronchiole, diaphragm of the human lungs. The anatomical setup of lungs in thorax is such that any change in the volume of the thoracic cavity will be reflected in the lung. Pulmonary cavity. Such an arrangement is essential for breathing, as we cannot directly alter the pulmonary volume. Mammalian lungs are solid and spongy without muscles, so power of self-contraction and self-relaxation is not present in mammalian lungs. Alveoli. Alveoli are a structural and functional unit of lungs. Alveoli consist of two types of cells called pneumocytes. Pneumocytes first are a smaller cell and help in gaseous exchange, where pneumocytes second are larger cells which secrete a phospholipid lecithin. Lecithin acts as a surfactant, reduce the surface tension of alveoli and keep alveoli always remain open for efficient gaseous exchange. On the outer side of alveoli, a yellow fibrous connective tissue is present. The total number of alveoli present in both the lungs of men is 300 million. Air, alveolar cavity, basement substances, red blood cells, blood capillary, alveolar wall, one called thick. Exchange part of the site of actual diffusion of O2 and CO2 between blood and atmospheric air. Respiration involves the following steps: breathing or pulmonary ventilation, by which atmospheric air is drawn in and CO2 rich alveolar are released out. Diffusion of gases O2 and CO2 across alveolar membrane. Transport of gases by the blood. Diffusion of O2 and CO2 between blood and tissue. Utilization of O2 by the cells for catabolic reaction and resultant release of CO2. Thoracic cavity. Thoracic cavity. Covering of thoracic cavity makes thoracic cage. Anterior surface, clavicle, bones, neck. Posterior surface, diaphragm. Dorsal surface, vertebral column and ribs. Ventral surface, sternum and rib. Lateral surface, ribs. Diaphragm. It is the muscle structure which separates the thoracic cavity from abdominal cavity. It is made up of muscles called radial muscles. Word related with diaphragm is phrenic. Diaphragm is the principal muscles of breathing and aid in ventilation. Other functions of diaphragm are parturition, childbirth, maturation, passing out of urine, and defecation, ejection. At the time of inspiration, diaphragm contracts and becomes flattened so that anteroposterior axis volume of the thoracic cavity is increased. Phrenic nerve is for diaphragm contraction. Intercostal muscles. Space between two pair of ribs are called intercostal space, where muscle in these spaces are called intercostal muscle. There are two types of intercostal muscles: external intercostal muscle, internal intercostal muscle. Muscle which cannot dorsal face of upper rib with ventral face of lower rib are called external intercostal muscles or inspiratory muscles. Muscles which connect ventral face of upper rib with dorsal face of lower rib are called internal intercostal muscles or expiratory muscle. At the time of inspiration, EICM contracts so that sternum moves outwardly and ribs moves upwardly. Hence, volume of thoracic cavity is increased in dorsoventral axis.